Hey, welcome, good kids. This is Tracy Lawrence for the Good Kids podcast. And today I am so excited because my good friend, Adria Gross, is joining us to talk about a topic that is so important, especially to people who are helping to care for aging loved ones. And I've called this podcast, the title of this is "Don't Pay That Bill," because I want you to know that when you get a really large bill from a medical care provider, it may not be the last word on that situation. And I know that my friend Adria has helped lots and lots of people to overcome these kinds of situations. And so I'm so excited to introduce Adria Gross. Adria, tell the good kids about what you do and why you do it.
Well, I've had a very interesting life. I'm originally from little Port Jervis, New York, where Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey come together. And when I was 11 and a half years old, I was taking horseback riding lessons. But one day in the afternoon, I'm in Hebrew school in Port Jervis. And all of a sudden, this thing came over me. We had a map of Israel, how to write down the cities. I really wasn't feeling well. The rabbi thinks I'm trying to get out of this test. So he finally, as a friend, walked me down the hall. I sat down in a chair and woke up 10 and a half hours later at a Catholic hospital. So here I am. I go down the hall, sit in a chair. My dad comes to get me about 2 hours after I sat down. And he said I could walk, but I couldn't talk. So here, 10 and a half hours later, the only hospital in Port Jervis, which is still there, it used to be called St. Francis, now it's Bon Secure. And here I was in my synagogue. So I'm laying there in the bed. I open my eyes, look straight ahead. I see a cross on the wall, thinking I'm in heaven. But to the right was the rabbi and the left was my parents. I'm like, holy cow. I felt like Dorothy coming out of that dream of hers, Wizard of Oz. But from that day on, I lived with epilepsy until I had brain surgery, which took almost 25 years. It was tough. I used to average 18 seizures a month. At one point, I was on 32 pills a day. It was very, very tough. But God was extra good to me, gave me everything I was asking for years for. Had a left temporal lobectomy, brain surgery, and went to college, but they wouldn't certify me to be a teacher because I had seizures. It was before the Disabilities Act of 1990. So here I am, had the brain surgery, decided not to go back to the manufacturing industry. I was in lingerie. And my first job was working for one of the major insurance companies, health insurance companies. And within 2 weeks, they taught me how to deny claims. I worked at that company for 2 years. And then I went off to another insurance company. And again, within 2 weeks, they taught me how to deny. So, and it was very stressful, extremely stressful. But I adopted a couple kids, took off some time, kept my feet wet, opened up a medical billing business. And 11 years ago, I opened up Medwise Insurance Advocacy. My logo is "We give a hoot about your claims," because here I was in claims, and I have the owl behind me if you can see it. But I learned how to deny, and I learned how to twist the arm of the insurance company. If it should be a covered claim, I make sure they pay it.
That's awesome. That's so great. And I met Adria at a networking meeting a while back. And when I heard her story, I was so floored. And we became friends, and we've shared friends and clients. And recently, in the last couple of years, this is a great story because it started off kind of rocky, but I have a friend who had been hospitalized, and she had some really weird things go on with her. and to protect her privacy, I won't, talk about any of the details. But the detail that she shared with me that was completely shocking was that when she got out of the hospital, they sent her a bill for $110,000.
117 to be exact.
Okay. I knew you would know the exact number, but when she told me 110,000, I was just like, oh my God. And but I also knew when I heard that it was not impossible for them to do that it was something that happens to a lot of people. And so I said, okay, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Adria because she's going to help you with this. And I don't know if she's going to be able to make all of that go away, but I know that she's had a great deal of success with helping a lot of that go away. So, Adria, do you want to talk a little bit about the case?
Yeah, this was a really interesting story. It took a couple of years. It took a while for my client to get all of her information together, which was needed, but they had it since the beginning of this year in January. And I'm telling you, man, we went back and forth with the hospital. But I just want to share this with you. First of all, I'm going to tell you what did happen, and I'm going to share with you what is also going on outside of this one case. And I know this because there's one newspaper who I've spoken to 4 times since around March this year. And they were going to publish this case for this reason. So let me tell you what happened. So the original bill was $117,000. And before that case came to me, they had lowered it down to a little under $100,000. It was 99 and change, 99,000 and change. So here we're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the hospital. She had one of these awful policies that they sold in the state of New Jersey, which people should not be purchasing. You have to make sure that if you're going to purchase insurance, think, okay, well, I'm going to save a lot of money if this is all my premium is. But the thing is that there are these really bad policies out there that are not run by major insurers. Like, for instance, you might get a policy that's one of these religious plans. Yeah. And they make these promises to you. Well, those promises never come true because they never pay out any claims. And if they pay them out, it's very minimal. So be extremely careful with what you purchase out there. So anyhow, she had one of those policies and they did lower it down to a little less than $100,000, 99 and change. And as it turned out to be, the bill was written off. I found out in July that it was written off. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I got up from my chair. I was screaming. I was like so excited. And then finally we got the zero balance from the hospital, which of course all this took a long time, but it happens. That's why I tell people never, ever give up. But if you see a bill, like her bill was 117 and they had lowered it down to almost 100. So the fact that they lowered it down, why did they do that? Was it that she only really had to pay about $17,000? Why did they lower it? And these are the things that you need to keep in mind whenever you see a bill that's not being paid. You have to figure out, hey, when they did that, is that really all that I owed was 17,000, or did I owe the full amount? And you have to find out why they did it, why they lowered it, because this is one of the cases that the media is really looking into to write about exactly what I said to you. So if you ever get this crazy bill and there's no way that you're able to turn it around, you're welcome to call me or another advocate there. And by the way, there aren't too many of us who really know this business throughout the United States. But I've been in the industry for 32 years now.
Yeah, and by the way, any of you good kids, if you want to get a hold of Adria, Adria, what's your website?
It's www.medicalinsurancedvocacy.com. www.medicalinsurancedvocacy.com. insuranceadvocacy.com.
Okay, and just so you know, what we'll do is on in all of the channels where this content is delivered, we'll include that URL so people will be able to follow up with you, and they'll be able to communicate with you and see what other quick cases you've worked on, and how it can work for them. Because Adria, what you do is just astounding. And
Thank you.
real, and I know, from personal experience, I had so many instances, between my husband and both my parents. There were so many situations where I had to go like totally ballistic on people because they were looking to shake us down for a lot of money. One of my favorite stories, which I had a really good outcome, long-term care insurance. Okay. A lot of people think, oh, I have long-term care insurance, so everything's covered, I'm good, no worries. And I'm sure you get these kinds of inquiries too, Adrian. It's like, it's and the insurance companies have a policy, and it's not just the policy they sell you, but their operating policy is deny first, ask questions later, right? And they hope that their insureds will just like take it and go. It's like we said no, right? My parents had long-term care insurance, and they had policies that were very specific. They had they had what's called an elimination period, where there's a period of time during which they don't pay any benefits, or they pay some benefits. Like in my parents' case, they would pay for in-home care if you qualified. So if you had issues with 2 out of 6 activities of daily living, or if you had cognitive decline diagnosed, then they would allow you to open a claim, and for 100 days they wouldn't pay for you to stay in a facility, but they would pay for people to come into your house and help you. And so that's how my familiarity with these programs started, because both of my parents, we started slow and we had people come in, but then once my mom was at the period where she needed to be in a facility, there was this period of time where she had a crisis, where she was hospitalized, and then she was in rehab, and then she was in a psychiatric hospital because she went totally batshit crazy.
Mm.
And I knew that her long-term care policy wasn't going to pay for the hospitalization or the rehab or the psychiatric hospital, because that's not covered under the plan.
Mm.
Her health insurance paid for those things. So I had been submitting bills, and they were paying her, for her rent in long-term care to the maximum monthly benefit.
Mm-hmm.
But then once she got out of the psychiatric hospital and went back, they stopped paying for her benefits. And I was kind of, I was very unsettled about this, and I kept calling them and saying, like, what's going on? In the past, I would get the bill from the facility, submit it to them, and then I'd get a check within a month or so. And I wasn't getting checks. And this went on for months. And every time I'd call them, I'd get a different rep. They didn't know what was going on. They were waiting for a certification of the facility, or like some like odd thing. And I wasn't getting answers. And after 4 months, I got really disgusted. And so I wrote a letter to the CFO of the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is what's going on. I'm sure it would not be favorable to your company if I started talking about this on social media.
Mhm.
Well, within 2 weeks of me sending out that letter, I had a special representative assigned to my case. And it turned out what the deal was that even though they didn't pay for like those places where she was,
Mhm.
still wanted the chain of residency during the time. So until I had to submit all those bills to them, even though they weren't going to pay them, just to prove that she was still incapacitated and needed the care. And then once I submitted all that stuff, then it turned out that they owed me even more than they thought they owed me. And so I got this great big honking check, and I was able to, like, pay all the back stuff. So yeah, and so the take home message is, don't take no for an answer. And if you're not equipped to be able to like do all this stuff, then you want to call somebody like Adria to help you to get through all of this nonsense, because insurance companies will make you miserable. They will try to not pay, and the people who are providing the services, who want to get paid, okay, um, are not inclined to be particularly generous with you either.
Mhm.
So that's why it's important to know that when somebody says no, it's not no forever. It just means no for right now. And you're just going to have to jump through some more hoops. Excuse me. So that we will do what we're supposed to do.
I tell people never, ever, ever give up. Just don't ever give up.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know, I just want to share this with people too. This is something that I've been speaking about recently, and I have a case right now. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to save money, and which you will. You definitely will save money if you take a Medicare Advantage plan.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
do save money, no problem, you'll save. But let me tell you something. You wind up in a rehab. You had surgery, you wind up in rehab, and you can't walk. You can't walk. There are certain things like with the rehab, they're going to give you physical therapy for you to be able to walk again. But what I'm finding out there, which is really bothering me, and people always think, oh, I'm going to save so much money if I take a Medicare Advantage plan. And just for your information, the people who are selling the Medicare plans do make more money with an Advantage plan. And some of the providers out there are happy because I have heard that they're getting paid sooner than direct Medicare. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Because just so people understand, what these Advantage plans do is they partner up with usually an HMO, right? A managed care, like another company like United Healthcare or Aetna, one of the biggies. And those people, they take the money that Social Security pays to Medicare for your premiums, and they manage it instead. So, and then you are in a position where you have to utilize their network in order to select your providers.
and
So,
sometimes they'll ask for a pre-authorization.
mhm.
Sometimes you can't go out of state. There's all kinds of complications. People call me up and they say, hey, I want to go into this hospital. There's a hospital in New York City that is on Medicare, but not on a Medicare Advantage plan. So I always tell people, before you even decide on getting a Medicare Advantage plan, who are the doctors? Who's the hospital? What's the medication you're on? You got to make sure and get it in writing that they're going to cover you. But let's go back. Let me go back to what happened in this case. So, okay, now the guy's in a rehab. And he was there for like, maybe 4 or 6 weeks. And all of a sudden the rehab turns around. So then I just heard a similar case like this last week when I went to a rehab where someone was at. They're paying it, but they cut off early. They cut off early all the time because they don't want to pay anymore. But then they switch you over to direct Medicare, where you're going to have to wait usually 3 to 6 weeks. That 3 to 6 weeks, guess who's going to pay all your bills from you being in the rehab?
You.
You. So what happened here is this was a gentleman, for 3 weeks he waited, got onto Medicare, and gets even better. When he went to Medicare, it was not considered the custodial care, which Medicare will not pay for. So, so it was skilled nursing that he needed. And they paid another 2.5 months. So if Medicare paid out another 2.5 months for skilled nursing, why is it that the commercial insurer wouldn't? And I'm going to tell you, I'm in touch with the executive office of that commercial insurer, because I want them to pay that remaining 3, plus on top of it, I want to be having them pay the other one, because believe it or not, this family, the husband had Medicare with an Advantage plan. The wife works for an employer that has the same company, the same insurer. So what happened here is she's got 2 policies with that same insurer, the Medicare Advantage plan and also her own insurance. So when he was accepted by direct Medicare and they're paying, that commercial insurer should be paying the other 20% that is with his wife's employer. So keep these things in mind. This will help you to not be stuck with these crazy bills when a rehab does this to you.
Yep. And being with traditional Medicare, though, is no guarantee either, because they're trying to cut costs.
Right.
I get contacted by families where, they'll say, my mom's in rehab, but they're only giving her 10 days. And the doctor says she needs 6 weeks to recover. What gives?
And there are ways to appeal this. I had a situation with a woman who lived in New York City, and for her to get into her house, she had to walk up all these stairs. So I got, they were sent to me through an attorney, and it went before a judge, and the judge said, you've got to pay that. Because how could she have gone home if she couldn't walk up those steps?
Yes, there's a term that everybody listening should write down so they remember it. It's called unsafe discharge. Anytime a facility wants to eject your loved one before they're ready to go, and they're in that kind of situation where they're going to go back to an apartment where they can't get up the stairs, you want to pull that term out, because that will strike terror into their hearts. Because that means you know something.
Right.
And that's something they don't want you to know. So if you say to them unsafe discharge, and you can contact, there are agencies like in New Jersey, there is the ombudsman's office, who step up for people for people who are in facilities, and you can get them to help advocate for you. The more resources you have, the more people, the more knowledgeable people that you can bring into your orbit who know about this stuff, the better off you're going to be. It's very worthwhile to do, because you can save a ton of money, and you can advocate for your loved ones so that they're not going to suffer, right? Or at least, minimize their suffering, because all this care it's so expensive. And you're discouraged from being creative. You're discouraged from wandering off their reservation.
Yeah, I want to add something to that. Like, even in this case, they were not, I hate to say this, but the rehab was not doing the right thing. Because I said, 2 months this went on, and right now I'm sending it to the state because they've done something really bad here. I said, so look, I need letters from your therapist as for his improvements during that time period, because this has to be paid. 2 months, what did I get? A little prescription saying that it was skilled nursing during that time. That's not enough. That's not going to work.
No, of course not.
That case is going to be sent to the state.
Yeah, and they should know. They should know better. If they're not documenting everything that they do for the patient, then they don't deserve to get paid. It's real simple. If I go up to you and say, hey, I washed your car and I detailed it and I vacuumed the rugs and and here's the bill, and okay, you're happy to pay for it, right? But if you just say, I cleaned your car, hand over $200, God, so people have to, and in a medical setting, right? You absolutely have to document everything. When and also with the custodial stuff, by the way, folks, even though this is not like technically medical, you need to document that stuff too. Anybody who's bringing in aides to help their loved ones in the house, okay, you got to make sure that they're documenting everything that they do for your loved one. Why? Because someday you may need to apply for Medicaid. On a long enough timeline, we live long enough, we run out of money, and then we need to go to Medicaid. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody foresees doing that. But if you proceed as if that may be part of your future and you have the people you hire document everything that they do, then if God forbid you have to apply for Medicaid, you will have the documentation they need to approve you. Because if you're not documenting everything that they're doing for you, and you say, well, I paid this healthcare aide $25,000 over time to take care of my loved one, and Medicaid's going to say, prove it. You don't have that documentation, you don't have the proof, and they're going to say, oh, so you took the $25,000 and put a pool in your yard, right? That's the kind of stuff they pull on people. So that's why it's so important to document everything. It doesn't matter if you're a consumer or if you are, especially if you are a provider, you got to document everything you do. I'll tell you another story, and I think I've shared this one with you. A couple of years ago, I needed an echocardiogram. I went to a cardiologist who was recommended to me by my GP. And before I went for the test, I called my insurance company and I said, do you cover this test? They said, yes, it's 100% covered as long as you're at Go-In Network. Okay, cool. So I make the appointment. I go to the office and I double check. I'm like, so you guys are in network for my insurance? Yeah, absolutely. We take Blue Cross, no problem. Okay, good. So I go, I get I get my no, it was sonogram, echo. So they do the test and they call me up and yeah, everything's good. And I was like, okay, and it was covered by insurance. Oh yeah, no worries. Okay, fine. And then I get a bill from the hospital system that this cardiologist is affiliated with for $1,700. And I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't go to this hospital. I verified that the procedure was covered and that they were in network and all that other malarkey. I was on the phone with these people over the course of 5 months. First, they said, oh, well, we're going to knock it down from 1,700 to 750. I was like, you can knock it down all you want. I'm not paying you. This is 100% covered. So then I got a new bill from the doctor's office saying I owed them $42. Okay, $42. I'm in with that. I sent them the payment. Then the hospital sends me a bill for $700.
Oh.
And I'm still calling. I was like, what is this? Oh, well, that's against your goes against your deductible. I'm like, that's not an answer. And then the collection agency called me. They sent me a letter. And I called them and I said, I've been talking to the cardiologist like for like months now, and they're supposed, and this is in process. And she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll put it on your record." Then I called my health insurance company again, told them what was going on, and they said, "Does your cardiologist have a portal like for patients?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Can you write messages on it?" I'm like, "Yeah." So they said, "Write to your doctor," because I kept calling her office, and I called the office manager and the billing guy, and none of these people were helping me.
Well, a lot of times they also have an outside billing company
Yeah,
who doesn't communicate with the provider.
right. So I wrote a message to the doctor. Oh, and also my insurance company said they submitted it as diagnostic as opposed to what's the other term?
Your annual physical.
Routine.
Routine.
Diagnostic or
Say your annual physical, right?
right. So this is a condition that I've had since I was in my 20s. This is nothing new. Okay. I'm fine, but it's just something that needs to be monitored, right? So I wrote her a message saying, "Doctor, I'm still getting these bills, and from what I understand from my insurance company, that this should have been billed as routine rather than diagnostic. Can you please resubmit? Because from what I understand, they will cover it that way 100%. Could you do it?" She never answered me. So I sent her the same message 3 times, never answered me, but I never heard from the hospital after that.
No more bill.
So here's the take home, folks. Don't take this from anybody. Don't take this nonsense from anybody, because if they can get you for more money, they will try. But if you are resistant and you give them a hard time, and you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, and you partner up with the people who are supposed to represent you, well, then you're going to send those people packing. So take home message, don't pay that bill, okay, until you find out all the facts. Defend yourself. Bring in advocates like Adria and myself, if you like, and we can help you to get through this stuff. And yes, we are professionals. We do get paid to do this, but what we do for you will save you so much money that you're going to be really happy that you engaged us. So, Adria, any closing thoughts?
I would just say, you know what, never give up. And the other thing I also wanted to tell people is, when you're deciding upon a doctor, try and get information on them. The doctor, the hospital. One of the things that I do tell people to go to, I don't know if you ever heard of Castle Connolly, but Castle Connolly, Consumer Reports, they have this thing called health grades and vitals. Take a look at that and compare and see if this is really major. See if there were any complaints about that doctor. Sometimes you'll think, oh, this doctor's great, da, 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 da. But when you take a look to see how people have rated them, I just heard a story recently. It was a doctor who wrote to me, in fact. And when I looked him up, I know why he wrote that.
Yeah, and it's so important. We live in a time when there are a lot of people who they try to do things. But we also have tools. And Adria, that's a great point. If you know where to look for ratings.
Right. But just don't look at the ratings, see what people have said.
Yes.
The ratings might be like a 4 point something, but when you look to see, sometimes you're going to find some ones in there of what really happened with that doctor.
Right.
Especially when they have like over 100, ratings.
Right.
Really take a look and just be sure that you're going to have the services that you really need and you can trust that person.
Absolutely. And if it's if it's a doctor for an aging loved one, talk to them about Medicare. Make sure they know how to work it, because a lot of people wind up spending a lot more money out of pocket than they need to, because the doctor did not code their chart properly, right? So if a doctor doesn't write the script for, excuse me, for rehab correctly, for instance, then they might not get the benefit that they're entitled to recover adequately from a procedure, right? So working with doctors who really understand how Medicare works, again, worth their weight in gold. So you want to have conversations with them. You don't want to let your loved one just go to the doctor's office by themselves. You want to be there. You want to hear what the doctor has to say. And because a lot of times when someone goes to a doctor by themselves and they don't process everything that the doctor tells them, they might be stressed, they might be confused. Being there with them, you can be, you won't just serve your loved one, but you'll serve yourself, because you'll know better what's going on with them, and you will be able to advocate for them more effectively if you know what's going on and you have a relationship with the doctor. It's more than just having healthcare proxy. It's the relationship that's really important.
Yeah, I'll just mention one other thing also is I wrote a book for those of you who know who Ralph Nader is. And the original book was Solved, SOLVED, exclamation point, Solved, Curing, CURING, Solve Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems. Ralph Nader liked it so much he won international edition. It's called Multi-Payer Medicine Nightmare, made in the USA.
Fantastic. Yeah, yes, definitely check out Adria's book. It's a fabulous resource. So where can they get a copy of the book, Adria?
Go right on to Amazon.
There you go.
5.
There you go. And after you've read it, make sure you leave her a good review.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Adria, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm sure the audience will get a lot out of this. Adria is a fantastic resource. I can't recommend her enough. And she, if you have any questions, she's really great about answering questions. So, by all means, avail yourself of her incredible wealth of knowledge. And I want to thank you for listening, and look for me next week on the Good Kids podcast. And everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Adria. Take care.